I enter the room, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. The only light comes from the TV screen, casting eerie shadows across the walls. My eyes are drawn to an old radio sitting on a shelf, covered in a thin layer of dust. It's been there for years, untouched, forgotten, but tonight something feels different. The air is heavy, oppressive, as if the very walls are holding their breath. I approach the radio, my hand hesitating over the dial. There's an odd hum emanating from it, barely audible but impossible to ignore. It's as if the radio is alive, waiting for me. My fingers brush against the cold metal and I feel a shiver run down my spine. With a deep breath, I turn the dial. Static fills the room, harsh and grating. I'm about to turn it off when a whisper cuts through the noise. It's faint, but clear enough to make my blood run cold. "You've never told anyone about the necklace you found." I freeze, my hand still on the dial. How could it know? That was years ago, a secret I've kept buried deep inside. I want to turn it off, to run from the room, but something keeps me rooted to the spot. The static continues, but now I'm straining to hear more. Another whisper emerges, this one more distinct. "Remember that night in the park when you didn't call for help?" My heart races. No one knows about that night. No one could possibly know, yet here it is, being broadcast into my living room. I feel exposed, vulnerable, as if the walls have eyes and are watching my every move. I can't turn it off. I know I should, but I can't. The whispers are becoming more frequent, more personal. Each one feels like a cold finger tracing down my back. "Your first kiss. It wasn't as perfect as you remember, was it?" She didn't feel the same way. The room seems to shrink around me. The shadows grow longer, darker. I swear I can feel something just behind me, but when I turn, there's nothing there. Just the radio, its dial glowing faintly in the dim light. "I know what happened to your brother. I know what you did." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stagger back, my legs weak. How? How could it know? That's impossible. I've never told anyone, never even allowed myself to think about it. But the radio knows. Somehow, it knows everything. I try to turn it off, my hands shaking as I fumble with the switch, but it doesn't work. The radio flickers for a moment, then comes back on, louder than before. "You thought you could escape me, but I've been with you since that night." Panic sets in. I look around the room, suddenly unsure if I'm alone. Has someone been here all along? Are they watching me now? The walls seem to pulse with each whisper, the shadows stretching towards me like grasping hands. The clock on the wall ticks loudly, each second feeling like an eternity. The whispers grow darker, more insistent. They're no longer just reciting memories, they're revealing secrets, terrible secrets that I've buried deep within myself. "The accident wasn't really an accident, was it?" the radio hisses. "You could have stopped it, you could have saved them, but you didn't." I cover my ears, but it doesn't help. The words seem to seep into my brain, bypassing my ears entirely. Tears stream down my face as I'm forced to confront the truth I've been running from for so long. "You can't hide anymore," the radio continues, its voice now a menacing growl. "The truth is out there, and so am I. I'm trapped in a whirlwind of terror, unable to escape the broadcast, unable to stop listening. The room grows colder with each passing second. The static grows louder, threatening to drown out everything else. Then just when I think I can't take any more, the radio delivers its final chilling message. "This was never about you. It was always about me. I've been in your life for a reason. Now, I'll never leave." The words hang in the air, heavy with promise and threat. With trembling hands, I reach for the plug, determined to end this nightmare once and for all. But as my fingers touch the cord, I feel a resistance. The radio stays on, its glow intensifying. The whispers continue, no longer coming from the radio alone. They're all around me now, in the air, in my head. I spin around trying to locate the source, but it's everywhere and nowhere at once. I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the TV screen. My face is pale, eyes wide with horror, but there's something else there too. A shadow just behind me, its form indistinct but undeniably present. The room warps around me, the walls seeming to breathe. The static from the radio distorts my vision, making everything pulse and shift. I can no longer tell where reality ends and nightmare begins. In that moment, I understand the terrible truth. The radio isn't just a conduit for my secrets. It's something more, something that's been with me all along, watching, waiting, manipulating my life from the shadows. As the whispers crescendo into a deafening roar, I realize that this isn't the end. It's only the beginning. The radio, this entity, is now a part of me. A permanent, inescapable presence in my world. The silence that follows is deafening, broken only by the sound of my ragged breathing. The radio sits innocently on the shelf, its dial dark once more. But I know better now. I know that it's always listening, always watching. I stumble from the room, my mind reeling. But even as I try to put distance between myself and the radio, I feel its presence. In the whisper of the wind, in the creak of the floorboards, in the beating of my own heart. The truth echoes in my mind, inescapable and terrifying. I'm not alone. I never was, and I never will be again. I never believed in ghosts. Not really. Sure, I'd watch those paranormal investigation shows and get a little creeped out, but I always chalked it up to overactive imaginations and clever editing. That all changed when I moved back into my childhood home last year. My father had passed away after a long battle with cancer, leaving the old Victorian house to me. I hadn't lived there in over a decade, but it felt right to return. The place needed work, peeling wallpaper, creaky floorboards, the works. I figured I'd fix it up, maybe sell it down the line. The first few weeks were uneventful. I spent my days stripping ancient wallpaper and sanding floors, trying to breathe new life into the tired old rooms. It was during one of these renovation sessions that I made the discovery that would change everything. I was tearing out a section of drywall in what used to be my father's study when my crowbar hit something solid. Confused, I pried away more of the crumbling plaster to reveal what looked like a door. An honest-to-God hidden doorway, sealed behind layers of drywall and insulation. My heart raced as I cleared away more debris. Who doesn't dream of finding secret passages as a kid? But as an adult, actually uncovering one felt surreal. The door itself was simple. Old unpainted wood with a tarnished brass knob. It took some effort, but I managed to wrench it open. The space beyond was pitch black. My phone's flashlight revealed a small, dusty room. It looked like it might have been servants' quarters once upon a time. There was a narrow bed frame, a simple dresser, and not much else. Everything was coated in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. I explored for a bit, but there wasn't much to see. Just an forgotten room, sealed away decades ago for reasons I couldn't fathom. I made a mental note to ask my aunt about it later. She might know the house's history better than I did. That night was when things started to get strange. I woke suddenly around 3 a.m., unsure why. The house was silent, but I had the distinct feeling that something had disturbed my sleep. As I lay there, trying to drift off again, I heard it. A soft, scraping sound, like nails dragging across plaster. It seemed to be coming from the wall near my bedroom door. Telling myself it was probably just the house settling, I got up to investigate. In the dim light from my bedside lamp, I saw nothing. The wall looked normal. But as I ran my hand over it, I felt something that made my blood run cold. 3 long, shallow grooves in the paint and plaster, as if someone or something had clawed at the wall. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd scraped it earlier while moving furniture and hadn't noticed. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Those marks hadn't been there when I went to bed. The next day, I threw myself into more renovation work, trying to push the unsettling incident from my mind. But as evening fell, a new kind of unease settled over me. I found myself avoiding the hallway near my father's old study, where I'd found that hidden door. That night, I woke again at almost the exact same time, 3:17 a.m. according to my phone. This time, there was no sound. Instead, I felt a bone-deep chill, as if all the warmth had been suddenly sucked from the room. My breath fogged in front of my face, and then I saw her. She was little more than a silhouette at first, a darker patch of shadow near my bedroom door. But as my eyes adjusted, I could make out more details. She wore an old-fashioned dress, her hair pinned up in a severe bun. Her skin was pale, too pale, with a faint bluish tinge. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was frozen in place. All I could do was watch as she turned to face me. Her eyes, God, her eyes. They were pitch black, without iris or pupil, just endless, empty voids. She took a step towards me, and I squeezed my eyes shut, praying this was just a nightmare. When I opened them again, she was gone. The room was back to its normal temperature. I didn't sleep again that night. The next day, I called my aunt, fishing for information about the house's history. She didn't know much, but she did remember my grandmother mentioning something about the servants' quarters being sealed off sometime in the 1940s. Apparently, there had been some kind of tragedy, but the details had been lost to time. I should have left then, should have packed my bags and never looked back. But a morbid curiosity had taken hold. I needed to know more. For the next week I experienced incidents, cold spots throughout the house, more scratches appearing on walls, objects moved when I wasn't looking, and always, that woman. She would appear like clockwork at 3:17 a.m., sometimes just standing silently, other times walking right through the goddamn walls as if they weren't even there. I started researching the house's history obsessively. Old newspaper archives, county records, anything I could get my hands on. And slowly, a picture began to emerge. In 1943, a young maid named Elizabeth had worked for the family that owned the house back then. She'd gone missing suddenly, with the official story being that she'd simply left town without notice. But there were whispers of something darker. Rumors of an affair with the married man of the house, of a pregnancy that needed to be hushed up. The more I dug, the more convinced I became that something terrible had happened in that sealed-off room. Something that had left Elizabeth's spirit trapped, reliving her final moments night after night. I knew what I had to do. As much as it terrified me, I had to go back into that room. Had to try to find some answers, some way to put Elizabeth's spirit to rest. So last night, I waited until 3:15 a.m. I stood in front of that hidden door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. At exactly 3:17, I pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was just as I remembered it, small, dusty, forgotten. But now there was a heaviness to the air, a palpable sense of sorrow and rage. And there, sitting on the edge of the narrow bed, was Elizabeth. She looked more solid now, less like a shadow and more like a real person. Tears streamed down her pale cheeks as she looked up at me with those bottomless black eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. "What happened to you?" She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, the room around us seemed to shimmer and change. Suddenly, I was watching a scene play out like some grotesque theater. I saw Elizabeth, young and alive, arguing with a man I recognized from old photos as the house's former owner. I saw her tears, her pleading gestures. I saw the man's face twist with rage. And then, oh God, I saw him grab her, saw his hands close around her throat. I wanted to look away, to run, but I was rooted to the spot. I watched in horror as the life drained from Elizabeth's eyes, as the man hastily hid her body in the walls of the very room I was standing in. As quickly as it had started, the vision faded. I was back in the dusty, abandoned room. But Elizabeth was still there, watching me with an expression of mingled hope and desperation. I understood then. She wasn't just a ghost. She was trapped, bound to this room, to the site of her murder, unable to move on. And now that I knew the truth, I had a responsibility. I've spent today making calls to the police, to historians, to anyone who might be able to help. I'm going to find Elizabeth's remains, give her a proper burial. Maybe then she can finally rest. But even as I take these steps, I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over, that by uncovering this long-buried secret, I've set something in motion that can't be stopped. Every night now, I lie awake, waiting for 3:17 a.m., waiting to see if Elizabeth will appear again, waiting to learn what other dark secrets this old house might be hiding. I don't know if I'll ever feel safe here again, but I do know one thing for certain. I'll never doubt the existence of ghosts again, not when I've seen the woman who walks through my walls. I step into the alleyway, my footsteps echoing off the narrow walls. The city's usual cacophony fades, replaced by an eerie silence that presses against my ears. I've taken this shortcut before, but tonight feels different. The air thickens as I move deeper into the alley. Shadows dance at the edge of my vision, cast by flickering street lamps that seem to dim with each passing second. I quicken my pace, eager to reach the other side and the comfort of my familiar street. But something's wrong. The alley stretches before me, impossibly long. I turn to look back, expecting to see the entrance, but there's nothing. Just more alley, more shadows, more oppressive silence. My heart begins to race. This can't be right. I've only taken a few steps. How can the entrance be gone? I shake my head, trying to clear the fog that seems to be settling over my thoughts. It's just my tired mind playing tricks, I tell myself. I've been working too hard, staying out too late. I just need to keep walking. The exit has to be close, but it isn't. With each step, the alley seems to grow longer. The walls loom closer, their brick facades twisting and warping in ways that defy logic. Graffiti that I could have sworn wasn't there a moment ago now crawls across the surface, the paint seeming to move and shift as I watch. "Hello?" I call out, my voice swallowed by the thick air. No response, not even an echo. Just that oppressive silence broken only by my ragged breathing and the pounding of my heart. I start to run, my footsteps thundering in the confined space. But no matter how fast I go, the end of the alley remains just out of reach. Time loses all meaning. Has it been minutes? Hours? I check my watch, but the hands spin wildly, offering no comfort. The walls press closer. I can feel them now, an almost physical weight against my skin. The air grows colder, each breath a struggle. Whispers start to filter through the silence, indistinct but unmistakably there. I whirl around, searching for the source. But I'm alone. Always alone. Or am I? Something moves in the shadows ahead. A figure, barely visible in the gloom. Relief floods through me. Another person. Someone who can help, who can explain what's happening. I open my mouth to call out, but the words die in my throat as the figure turns. It's me, or something wearing my face. A twisted, shadowy version of myself, eyes gleaming with a malevolence that sends ice through my veins. It speaks, and its voice is mine, but distorted as if coming from the bottom of a well. "You can't escape me," it says, and I realize with horror that the words are coming from my own mouth. I clamp my hands over my lips, but the voice continues, echoing from every direction. "You've been here before. You've always been here." Memories flood back, fragmented and disjointed. How many times have I walked this alley? How many nights have I found myself here, trapped in this endless loop? The walls pulse around me, alive and hungry. I sink to my knees, the cold pavement biting into my skin. "No," I whisper, but even that small defiance is swallowed by the alley. The shadows creep closer, my doppelganger's grin widening impossibly. I try to stand, to run, but my legs won't respond. The alley has me now, its grip unbreakable. As the darkness closes in, I realize the terrible truth. This was never a shortcut. It was always a trap, waiting patiently for me to stumble in, and now that it has me, it will never let go. The last thing I see before the shadows consume me is my own face, twisted in a mockery of a smile. And then I'm walking down a quiet urban street at night. The air is cold, and the city sounds seem muted. I'm tired, and I decide to take a shortcut through a narrow alleyway to get home faster. The alley is dimly lit, with only a few flickering street lamps casting long shadows. I hesitate as I step into the alley. The space feels unnervingly quiet, the walls of the buildings looming overhead. As I walk, I hear the faint echo of my footsteps, the sound magnified in the tight, confined space. The air feels thicker here, more oppressive. A few steps in, I notice something strange. The alley doesn't seem to end. I pause and glance behind me, but the exit I entered from is no longer visible. I shrug it off as a trick of the night, assuming my eyes are playing tricks on me. But as I continue forward, the alley seems to stretch longer with each step. The walls feel closer. I begin to walk faster, feeling a rising unease. The alley's atmosphere starts to change. The air grows colder, the shadows darker. The farther I go, the more claustrophobic it feels. Every turn seems to offer no way out. I stop again, turn around, and see that the entrance I came through has vanished entirely. This can't be right, I mutter to myself, my voice sounding strange and muffled in the thick air. It should have been right there. Panicking, I try to retrace my steps, but the alley has now twisted in an unnatural way. I can no longer find the path back. Each turn leads me deeper into the same endless stretch. The walls feel as though they're closing in on me. The deeper I go, the more distant the sounds of the outside world become, replaced only by my own breath and the unsettling silence. The atmosphere becomes heavier. I hear faint sounds, rustling, whispers, and distant footsteps, but when I turn to look, no one is there. The alley seems alive, watching me. My steps echo back in a distorted, unnatural way, as though I'm being followed. As I keep walking, things begin to shift. The alleyway starts to change. The pavement beneath my feet grows uneven, and graffiti on the walls seems to move and distort, as if it's shifting in real time. Time itself feels distorted as I check my watch. Minutes turn into hours. Every time I glance behind me, the alley seems longer. Desperation sets in. I begin to run, but no matter how fast I go, the alley stretches on. The walls now seem to close in on me, blocking my view ahead. Every corner I turn leads to the same dark passageway. Panic sets in as I try to scream, but my voice is swallowed by the oppressive air. Just as I feel I am completely lost, a shadowy figure appears at the end of the alley. It's indistinct, barely visible, just a dark shape against the far wall. As I approach, the figure remains motionless. A voice, low and distorted, echoes from the darkness. "You can't escape me." I reach out to it, but find my hand passes right through the shadow, leaving me horrified. As I move closer to the shadowy figure, I begin to hear my own voice whisper back at me from the shadows. Every step forward makes me realize that the alley was never meant to be a shortcut. It's a prison, and the walls were always closing in on me. The alley has no end, no escape. "You've been here before," the whisper from the shadows says. "You've always been here." At that moment, I realize the truth. The alley doesn't just stretch physically, but through time itself. I am trapped, condemned to walk this same path forever, unable to escape. The shadows engulf me, and I feel myself dissolving, becoming one with the alley itself. And then I'm walking down a quiet urban street at night. The air is cold, and the city sounds seem muted. I'm tired, and I decide to take a shortcut through a narrow alleyway to get home faster.